All right, welcome back, people. So I quickly recap what we had in the last session. We did discuss about everything I need to know. I learned in the Forest by Vandana Shiva. We went through our biography, a brief biography, and also the overview of whatever we are going to learn in these lessons. So I'm going to quickly take you back. Also, there were questions asked. Have you heard of Chipko movement? And what was the role played by women? So Chipko movement, we are all aware of it, and how women who resisted that movement also we did discuss. So going further, so I'll take you Vandana Shiva. How she is a well-known, very renowned activist in the field of biodiversity and against corporate globalization, and also she has authored more than 45 books, and the specific essay was extracted from two different magazines. Also she was a principal editor in S magazine, also we did discuss, right? And also what all we discussed about diversity, life forms, earth is our motherland, earth democracy, the Indian tradition of ecology, all that we are going to discuss in the coming part of the essay. The forest teaches value of diversity, freedom and coexistence, which is very essential for humans to stay happy or to stay at peace in the society. All right. So this is how our ecological journey began. So we talk about our childhood because the kind of influence that her parents had, her childhood has, it in molding her whatever she has become today, because that's why we also discussed about the importance of childhood, how it plays a crucial role when you grow up. So that is what we talked about, how she had come to stay in Himalayan region after her parents fleeing the tragic partition of India and Pakistan. It is from the Himalayan region ecosystem she learned, and because her father was a forest conservator and her mother was a farmer herself, and where they used to write folk songs, poems. So through all that, which has motivated her to take interest in preserving nature, conserving nature, all that. All right, my involvement in the contemporary ecology movement began with the Chipko. She also became part of Chipko. That's where her journey started, and how before she became part of it and who led that movement. What's her name? So we learn more about it, and also how this movement, Chipko movement, played a very, very important role also we're going to talk about. And we also discussed what is Chipko movement. Chipko movement is a non-violent movement against logging of trees, right? That also we discussed. Okay. So I'm sure also this is very important to remember this year, because you might be asked for one mark question. The peasant women religion in this region, Garhwal Himalaya, had come in the defense of the forest, right? So that is how it's all started. Logging had led to landslide, floods, scarcity of water, fodder, fuel. So since women are more responsible for these things, they were the ones who were affected more, because also the logging and the fuel, they have to walk long distance for bringing water. So that's how it all started. That is why they came forward. By the way, also one more thing that you have to keep in mind is these are so-called uneducated women who started this movement, because they understood the value of nature and forest than those so-called educated ones. So these are the ones started and stopped such large-scale logging. Okay, so because they knew the real value of forest, the timber from dead tree was not the timber from dead tree, but the springs and streams, food for their cattle and fuel for their earths. The women declared that they would hug the trees, and the loggers would have to kill them before killing the trees. So this is how Chipko movement started. They would just go and hug the tree and tell them, you cut me first before you cutting the trees. That's how it started. And also the folk song. These beautiful oaks and rhododendrons, they give us cool water. Don't cut these trees. We have to keep them alive. This is like a folk song in their own, maybe not in English, but in their own language. So what they're saying is these trees, these plants, they give us cool water. Don't cut these trees. We have to keep them alive. If they are alive, we will be alive. If they are not, we don't get water, we don't get proper air. so to breathe. So all that is what they are saying. This is this. So far we have done in the previous session. To continue, again in 1973, I had gone to visit my favorite forest and swim in my favorite stream before leaving for Canada to do my PhD. But the forests were gone and the stream was reduced to trickle. So she was supposed to go to Canada for her PhD. She has done PhD in physics. But later she again came back to being conservator of forest and the nature, and started biodiversity movement and corporate globalization. But one thing we also have to keep in mind that she has done her PhD in physics. So in 1973 again, so before she is going to Canada to do it, that's where she has done her PhD. She usually in your childhood you have the specific place where you used to go swim and play. So she used to go there. She used to go to the place where she used to swim, but earlier it was a stream. Now it has reduced to trickle. Trickle means where stream is large quantity of water flowing in a place. Now it has become very narrowly small water. It means the water scarcity is already evident because of the tree logging. So that is what we need to understand. That's what she is trying to say. Where there is a huge stream where she used to swim, now there is no water left. It has reduced to trickle. Trickle in small amount of water, the flowing. So that is what trickle means. So this also she is very, very essential to understand the changes that have taken place from over the years. That's what she tries to mention it here. I decided to become a volunteer for the Chipko movement and spent every vacation doing padayatras, walking pilgrimages, right? Documenting the deforestation and the work of the forest activities and spreading the message of health. So whenever she got vacation, whenever she was free, she decided to become a volunteer because she too understood the value of the tree and the importance of this movement. So she took part in it during vacation, even during her studies, during her PhD. She didn't sit back and just watch what everything happening and kept cribbing about it, but instead actively she participated because she wanted to stop this large scale tree logging. So because otherwise the water scarcity and there's a lot of issues these women have to face, right? That's why she started taking part in it. One of the dramatic Chipko auction took place in the Himalayan region of Advani in 1977. So this year also you should remember, because this is the year where this dramatic event. Let's see what dramatic event that has taken place. When a village woman named Bachni Devi led resistance against her own husband, who had obtained a contract to cut trees. When officials arrived at the forest, the women held up a lighted lantern, although it was broad daylight. The forester asked them to explain. The women replied, "We have come to teach you forestry." He retorted, "You foolish women, how can you prevent tree logging?" So we'll discuss about it. Tree felling by those who know the value of the forest. Do you know what forests bear? They produce profit and resin and timber. The women sang back in chorus. What do the forests bear? Soil, water, pure air. Soil, water and pure air sustain the earth and all she bears. So this is a dramatic event that taken place and which she witnessed, and she is going to describe this. How powerful and strong these women are when it came to this activity. Here is a woman named Bachni Devi who led this movement against her own husband. Her husband had got the contract of cutting the trees in particular region. So these women in group, they held the light lantern during the broad light. It's not night. It's a sign of protest. That's why they were carrying the lantern. They said, and they were made fun of by these men who taken the contract, and whose wife of one of the men was a contractor. And they say, You would have seen, if these days any protest that is taking place, they carry a candle, lantern, anything to signify, to symbolize they want a light, they want the truth, they want the solution. So that's what it symbolizes. The same way these women, even broad daylight, they're carrying a lantern to show that we need a solution. By doing this act, you are putting us into dark. Yeah, so that is what it symbolizes. That's why they're carrying the lantern. The forester asked them to explain. So they're making fun of these foresters, so-called, and asking them. The women replied, "We have come to teach you forestry." They look at the resilience and the kind of confidence they're talking to so-called people who are in the forest department or forestry, whatever the contract they have taken from the government. They're saying, we have come to teach you forestry, because forestry is not cutting up the trees and destroying the entire forest. It is saving, preserving, nurturing these plants and trees. That is what forestry. That is what we are up to, and we are going to fight. That's what they say. We have come to teach you forestry because you people are blind to see what forestry is, because you are destroying everything. That's what he says. He retorted in anger. Angrily he says, "You foolish women, how can you prevent tree felling by those who know the value of the forest?" What he's telling, he's telling, how can you stop cutting trees from the men who know what forest bear? The value of forest, we know. What foolish women you people know, because you don't know anything. All you know is some, fodder, and you get water and all that, but we know the real value, because we can make a lot of profit by timber. The resin is kind of a viscous, where it's also commercial purpose they use, and also the timber. So they're all talking about making profit. So that is the value of real forest, not preserving, not nurturing, because it doesn't give you anything. So that is how he is retorted in anger to these women. We know the real value of the forest, you people do not know. You women are foolish. That's what he says. Then all the women together sang back in chorus. This is also a sign of a protest. How they protested back with the song. Already Vandana shared how these women used to compose such folk songs to celebrate the beauty of nature and whatever it has gifted to humankind. Now they say, what do the forests bear? They say soil, water, and pure air. Soil, water, and pure air. When they say this, when they're repeatedly saying these words, it means these are very essential for living, without which you cannot live. They say, sustain the earth and all she bears. Whatever it is required to sustain on earth, the forest bear everything, because without forest, there is nothing can sustain on this earth. That is what these women now trying to send a message very effectively and strongly to these men who believed, who thought this could only give us profit with the timber and resin. When you say timber and resin, where do the timber come from? The timber comes when you cut the tree, dry the wood. That is why, so you can sell it for more profit margins. So that is what they believe. But this thinking, if you continue to do so, there is nothing can sustain on the earth. That's what the women say. So that is it. Now beyond monoculture. So now let's understand what is monoculture and what is she talking about the monoculture. Let's see. From Chipko, I learned about biodiversity and biodiversity-based living economies. The protection of both has become my life's mission. As I described in my book, Monoculture of the Mind, the failure to understand the biodiversity and its many functions is at the root of the impoverishment of nature and culture. Now she starts talking about, from Chipko movement, she learned the value of biodiversity. And the problem is, many of us do not understand what is the value of biodiversity. Is the root cause for all the impoverishment of nature and culture. And that is also she mentioned in one of her book, Monoculture of the Mind. This is the book she has mentioned how it is important for every individual to understand biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity, equal rights and space for all the living being on earth. It could be a tree, it could be any other species. Let it be any other species. It has an equal. So everybody together living under this one a roof is a biodiversity, because we are all interdependent, we are all interconnected. Without one, another one cannot survive. If you think, okay, without tree I'm going to survive, no, you can't, because there will be no oxygen, you won't be able to survive. The same thing, there are studies says if bees, honeybees disappear from the earth, everything will be destroyed to the ground. So we are all, it's a cycle, we are all interdependent. So biodiversity, that is why it's very important to understand the value of biodiversity and its function. It has to be equal rights and freedom for all the species. So he mentioned that explicitly in the book Monoculture of the Mind. Monoculture is just one species, giving all importance and to one species, and it is centered around that species, that is human, right? So that's how we think. We are primary, the primary focus on humans, and other species are always looked down upon and ignored and exploited, oppressed. That's what we have done, right? That is a monoculture. So you will have to look beyond monoculture. That is what she is talking about. The lessons I learned about diversity in the Himalayan forest, I transferred to the protection of biodiversity on her farms. Now she is talking about how she replicated the same biodiversity in her farms. I started saving seeds from the farmer's field, and then realized we needed a farm for demonstration and training. Thus Navadanya farm was started in 1994 in the Doon Valley. Very important point in the lesson, when it started, what she started, Navadanya farm, which year it started, where it started, and why she has started this. Because you will be often asked question about Navadanya farm. At least one question will always be there. 4-mark question, 6-mark question, or 1-mark question will always be. When did Navadanya farm start? Where did it start? And also in 4-mark question, in a more explanation, Vandana Shiva, why she started Navadanya farm, or write a short note on Navadanya farm. They will always ask this question. So it's very important to understand. Now, so she started because she wanted to replicate biodiversity in her farm. So she wanted a farm. Just having a farm and replicate biodiversity is not enough. What is biodiversity? Replicating biodiversity in farm means you grow more than one crops, so it will nourish the soil. Okay, it will not impoverish, it will nourish the soil, so that you will have very good crops, and you can grow more crops, and it will help you in more than one ways to be economically effective. So that is what she's talking. So she wanted a farm for that. So just having a farm, replicating it doesn't work. So she also wanted to train a lot of farmers. So that is when she started Navadanya farm, which started in 1994 at Doon Valley, which is located in the lower elevation of Himalayan region. Where it is located? Lower elevation of Himalayan region, Doon Valley, 1994 she started. So what she did, she started saving the seeds, then started planting in the farm. And also it's not just that. We needed a farm for demonstration and training. She also wanted to train farmers how to replicate, how to do biodiversity in farm. So that is why she started this farm. Let's see. Uttarakhand province. Today we conserve and grow 630 varieties of rice, 150 varieties of wheat, and hundreds of other species. So look at this. So this is a biodiversity where multiple crops are grown and the same farm. Yeah, you probably, if you're coming from agriculture background, you could talk to your parents or any of the farmer. They would tell you how beneficial it is, biodiversity. It would see, if you see in one farm, you will have coconut trees and you will have growing a lot of other vegetables. Why they do that? You ask, because also it helps the soil. It nourishes. So that is why it's also important. So here you see, she grew 630 varieties in her Navadanya farm. 630 varieties. Have you heard 630 varieties of rice? Yeah, there are so many varieties of rice she has grown. 150 varieties of wheat. We have never heard. Hardly, like we know from 8 to 10 varieties, hardly. Even that is more. But imagining 630 varieties of rice and 150 varieties of wheat is something very significant, amazing, right? So that is what she has showed in her farm, and she has spread that. biodiversity, and also she has done the training for a lot of farmers used to come. It has become like a training place, yeah, and so that they could go back to their own farm, start replicating, you know. That is why. And also why she started saving seeds, because she always was against these corporate companies about selling seeds for a higher price, so which would indebt these farmers, and that led to a lot of suicide across the country, right? So that is also very important. So you do not have to pay huge money and buy seeds from corporate companies. So you can save the seeds and replicate this biodiversity program. That is why she started. Therefore, also answer to the food and nutrition crisis. Biodiversity is therefore also the answer to the food and nutrition. So now if you look at it, now many farmers, they grow particular crop to probably, that is how they have been directed and misled, because they want to grow crops to export. Now what happens if you keep growing the crops which you can export to other countries, and in order to make profit, it is not even a profit. No farmer is making a profit. You're doing that crop, you're growing that crop so that you can repay the loan, because you already bought the seeds for a higher price, right? So that is why. And also these corporate companies, so-called corporate company, manipulate you into buying those seeds and growing this to make you greedy. But in return, what happens now, if you look at a lot of cotton growing farmers have committed suicide. Why that happens? So if all of these farmers started growing only economic purpose, then the country will suffer from food and nutrition. Then we have to eat our own food, a good food. So we have to start importing from other countries. That should not happen. So that is why she was against to the whole idea of buying seeds from the corporate company or monoculture. So this just growing one crop is like a monoculture. Where growing multiple crops, it's a biodiversity, right? Yeah. Now Navadanya, the movement, and Navadanya was formed, also Navadanya there was a movement. Navadanya, the movement for biodiversity conservation and organic farming, that I started in 1987. So Navadanya, why the name? So before she starting the farm, she has started the movement. That is also Navadanya movement, which started much before the farm came into place, which is 1987. Is spreading. So far, we have worked with farmers to set up more than 100 community seed banks across India. See, again. And we have saved more than 3,000 rice variety. We also help farmers to make transition from fossil fuel and chemical-based monocultures to biodiversity ecological system, nourished by the sun and the soil. So this is more into organic way of farming, organic farming. So because the nourishment and nutrition of the soil is high, so that you will not have to use a chemical based farming, which will not have such a nutrients in their crops, in their product. So also they say we have worked with farmers to set up more than 100 community seed banks and 3,000 varieties of rice. So they have explored all this through this movement and through this farm. She's been able to do it, right? They have their own seed bank where they save the seeds and they would make use of it in their biodiversity. Biodiversity has been my teacher, and abundance and freedom of cooperation and mutual giving. So that is what she believes. Biodiversity itself teaches so many things to how to live in peace and harmony with everybody. So biodiversity, like if you know, India is known for diversity, right? Where all the religious, cultural, ethnic, race system living together happily in harmony and peace. So that is why it is a biodiversity also teaches the same thing. That's why she's telling it's been my teacher, abundance and freedom of cooperation and mutual giving, because we are all interconnected, interdependent for one another. One cannot survive without another. That is what she says. Biodiversity has been my teacher. All right. So with that, we will continue from the next session. Thank you.